All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Red Rain episode 169. Please welcome in your host, Walter Mitchell.
Thank you, Kyle Little Rock Ledbetter. Day after a very disappointing loss once again to the Seahawks, who have been dominant over the Cardinals for a number of years. And as long as Geno Smith has been quarterback, of course, Russell Wilson's last game with nothing to play for, but knocking off the Cardinals out of the winning the NFC West in 2021. Goes back a while. We haven't beaten them in quite some time. And yesterday was, in some ways, an even more dominant performance than what we saw in Seattle 2, 3 weeks ago. So it's very disappointing. And today we have special guest Marcos Labrada, who's here with us. And Marcos, while you were watching that game, what was going through your mind?
Well, especially on those drives where Kyler Murray had back-to-back interceptions. The first drive, the scripted drive that everybody talks about, went flawlessly. They drove down the field. It was executed off of a play action, uh, fake over to a corner route to Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson was like probably like 4 or 5 yards away from the his closest defender, which was Kobe Bryant, and it was a good throw to be able to deliver on that touchdown. But after that, we saw Ernest Jones pop up out of nowhere. Where I don't know if people remember this, but Ernest Jones was the linebacker for the Los Angeles Rams, and he had gone a couple interceptions on Kyler Murray before, doing
Yeah.
basically the same thing, dropping into that hook curl zone, keeping his eyes on Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray's not looking where he's targeting or who he's targeting. He pops up out of nowhere and grabs an interception. If people remember this, and I 100% remember this, 2021 when Cardinals lost that second Los Angeles Rams game, it was because of two interceptions that Kyler Murray had, one in the end zone and one where he was just trying to float it to his tight end, and Ernest Jones was able to come down with it. So this game was reminiscent of like games where games matter. Um, it showed me that he's there overthinking stuff. One, two, the pressure seems to just like it's causing him to like not only make bad decisions, but it's he's going back to like situations where he's just not seeing the entire field. And so when that happens, I think he knows that he needs to try to win this game. And if he doesn't win this game, then most of the time he doesn't get the blame. It's actually Drew Petzing. But I'm starting to see a lot of the fan base starting to turn on him.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it was really rough yesterday. I mean, it's interesting because, in a way, the Seahawks now have replaced the the Aaron Donald Rams defense with two great moves they made, trades that I wish the Cardinals would consider making. You need a stud in the middle on defense. The great teams have them, like Chris Jones in Kansas City, and Leonard Williams has been on fire. Now that's a big trade they made last year to try to make the playoffs. They didn't make the playoffs, but now Leonard Williams is kicking ass inside, and he's definitely in Kyler Murray's head. And then I still don't understand. I asked Dan Viennes when I was on his podcast for the Seahawks, you know, Forever Seahawks podcast. How in the world did you wind up with Ernest Jones? I've always liked him a lot. Not only because he can step up and tackle, but he's really good in coverage, just as Marcos illustrated. I remember the play like it was on a 1st and goal from the 1 yard line. Cardinals got cute against the Rams and try to throw a little Malcolm Butler pass to Zach Ertz, and who steps in and intercepts it right away is Ernest Jones. And also they have the Ernest Jones of the Rams in the middle of their defense. How they pulled that off and why Ernest Jones was on 3 teams this year is mind-boggling to me because of how good he is. I'd take him in a heartbeat. And they're saying over in Seattle now he's emerging as a leader. Marcos made a great point about Mike Macdonald. Mike Macdonald just a couple years ago was at Michigan defending the likes of Marvin Harrison Jr. And to think that now he's in command of the division in a rookie season, having handled the Cardinals with relative ease, and Cardinals basically gift wrapping some interceptions to them, and Kobe Bryant being a nemesis now on the back end. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, we go back to Kyler and late season chances to clinch things, and he's still over. I mean, in 2020, he had the win in LA against who was the quarterback? Oh my God. Oh, the kid from like Wake Forest or whatever.
You're talking about John Wolford.
John Wolford. And Kyler got injured early on, and then it took forever for him to go back in the game. And by the time he did, it was too late. I mean, you would never seen Mahomes leave a game like that with those ramifications. So that was disappointing. So we missed the playoffs in 2020. In 2021, we can win the NFC West if we win at home on the last game against the Seahawks team that won like 6 games all year that year, had a down year, and Russell Wilson comes in and just dominates the game, throwing left and right. He had like 18 plays of 20 yards or more. It was just bizarre. And the Cardinals, I mean, Kyler tried in that game to keep up but couldn't. So he didn't get that done. And then, of course, I mean, now he's had 2 chances against the Seahawks that on either game you win those games, you're still in first place with the over 50% chance of probability of winning the division. So, and these games, I mean, to average 12 points in 2 games against the Seahawks is just, and then they're in your own division, and they're now coached by a brand new head coach with no head coaching experience, except now he's clearly well ahead of our coaching staff in year 2. So it's frustrating, and it does not bode well for the future if you can't beat this team at all. I mean, Geno Smith is what now? 6-0 against the Cardinals, 5-0 against Kyler. I mean, what's up with that? What do you think, Kyle?
This was the one that really stings, and I think the bigger question is the Cardinals didn't have their best offensive game yesterday. They obviously gave up 14 points off of turnovers, and there would be an interesting conversation to be had about, can the Cardinals defense sustain on a day that the offense doesn't bring their best game? But the thing that stinks about this game is that the Cardinals could have thrown 4 interceptions and the Seahawks still probably would have won that game because there was just nothing that they had going for them. It was really disappointing because I saw before the game like their playoff odds were the biggest ebb and flow of the week based on result, and so losing this game really stinks, and losing 3 in a row after everyone was riding high from the 4 games in a row is really tough to swallow. Obviously, you can go back to the old line of, that they're still above where they expected to be this year and they could end up getting a wild card spot and all that stuff, but it's really disappointing to have it be the Seahawks who similarly they went through that retooling of their defense that Marcos was talking about and brought in a new head coach and brought in a new coaching staff, and they've just kind of picked up where they left off and have had tremendous success on the flip side. So in that respect, it's disappointing, but I agree with your sentiments as well, Walter, that it's, it feels like the Seahawks have come in and replaced the Aaron Donald, Sean McVay Rams is in terms of that just thorn in Arizona's side. And that is tough because they started 3-0 against the division and were 2-0 against the division. And we're 6-4 and there was so much promise, and now it's a long road back up. Obviously, they play uh, three opponents that are below 500 the back half of the season. So there's a puncher's chance at getting to 9-8, but 9-8 might not be good enough to make the playoffs. Although 9-8, from the start of the season to now, I guess we would take that as people following this Cardinals team.
Yeah, it's frustrating when you suddenly earned your way into a rare opportunity. Like, we don't know what's going to happen next year. I mean, people are saying the 49ers are cooked. I will never say that ever. Not with Mike, with Kyle Shanahan as head coach, and with some of the star power players that they have, and with their quarterback, who I think is pretty nifty, as he proved again yesterday in a bounce back game. So, and the Rams. I mean, McVay, look what he did yesterday against the Bills. He's the only one who's been able to beat the Bills, and in a shootout, they beat the Bills. In ways that the Cardinals were unable to in Week 1, obviously. But and I think that if the Cardinals have one path now, it's to sweep the last 4 games and hope that the Seahawks lose 3. And there's 3 games in there that they could potentially lose. I don't think they're losing at Chicago on a Thursday night, but who knows there? Maybe Chicago has something to say about that. But they got to play Green Bay, Minnesota, and the Rams. So they lose those 3 games and the Cardinals sweep. Now, that would put the Cardinals, that would win the division for the Cardinals, regardless of what the Rams and 49ers do, because the Cardinals would then have the tiebreakers against the Rams and 49ers, having beaten them twice each. So if that happens, now, it may sound crazy to even talk that or think that right now, but because it's a reality, I mean, it's a potential, we might as well bring it up. And regardless of what we do, we can't stop playing. We have 4 games left, and like you said, Kyle, there's some momentum to be gained potentially in these last 4 games, to have this thing feel like it's still trending in the right direction. Now, so can we go to those highlights and or the highlight plays? Because I want to get Marcos right on. We'll cue him up. We'll run it. We'll have Marcos give his impression, and then we'll try to go in rapid fire. So the first one's going to be the beautiful touchdown pass from Kyler to Michael Wilson. And man, what a great way to start. Like Marco said, the scripted, opening drive, it was fantastic. I mean, we're thinking, wow, this could be, what a way to start the game.
All right, so let's get Marcos in here real quick. We're gonna start here from the 41-yard line, so it's 2nd and 6. There's obviously first drive, so we're gonna run.
Beautiful, and the design of it was like so I'm trying to see where's everybody lined up here. Not sure where Michael Wilson's lined up. I think he's on the right side. He's the number 2 receiver.
He's on the bottom.
Greg Dortch.
Isn't he?
Oh,
he's on the bottom.
That's I think that's Marv. Marv's at the bottom. Michael Wilson is okay. He's running what you call.
Yep.
Yeah, he's running what you call the post corner route, which is he's attacking to the inside. So he has an inside release, and then he runs up the field as if he's running somewhat like a go route, and then he tries to create that separation by attacking that leverage, which you see Kobe Bryant's on the inside of the hash marks. You have Michael Wilson at the hash marks. He attacks to the outside, and then he gets all that separation to be wide open.
Look at the double team, and then the waggle away from him, almost over to the hash mark from Kyler, buys him that time in case somehow Hamilton gets through. They nullify Hamilton on this play very well.
I think you're talking about Leonard Williams, right?
I mean, Leonard Williams. And exactly, thank you, Kyle. And so the waggle is very effective. And look at Hat on it. Look at Raymond's block on the edge. Chip Raymond played a pretty good game there. A nice bounce back game. Beautiful.
All right, so the next one we're going to go to here is a little less fun. We've got the ensuing Cardinals possession. It's second
Right.
and 19 from the 21. I believe this is off of a sack, maybe. Second and 19. They have three wide here, tight end lined up in the receiver formation, not so much lined up in the.
This route doesn't work against this type of defense if it's a zone type of defense for that same exact reason that if you're going to throw a dig and there's going to be spot droppers, you don't want to throw that ball. So I didn't see any indicators. I didn't see any motion for him to see if this is going to be a man zone tell, and
Right.
I certainly didn't see if there was any cornerbacks on tight ends and safeties on wide receivers. So
Right.
because there was no indication of that, Kyler Murray had no idea about what kind of coverage he's going up against, but he probably thought he had his guy on that dig route coming back in until, guess what? These linebackers are 2 yards away from the line of scrimmage. They're not blitzing. So maybe they were trying to give that tell of like, hey, he's gonna throw to the hot area. They drop to their spot and they're not coming. He goes around, he goes with it anyway. And that's just not a good decision on his part.
Right. Yeah, he said it. He actually had seen Ernest Jones and couldn't explain beyond that. But which is good that the Arizona press is starting to answer more specific questions. I was disappointed last week why they didn't ask Jonathan Gannon how you could leave Justin Jefferson wide open with the game on the line, and particularly on that fourth down. That's just still mind-boggling to me. But and to my knowledge, I never heard anyone ask him about it. But uh, someone should have, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's disappointing, particularly at this point where you still have a lead. You're at 7-3. The defense held them to a field goal. The play before, I think, was a holding call on Paris Johnson. Um, so, and what do you think's going on with Paris Johnson, Marcos?
He's a so I've described Paris Johnson as an oversized tight end. He's a very good he's good when it comes to athleticism and moving, but handling power has always been something of a issue for him because of the fact that he has like kind of that slight frame for an offensive tackle. So with him, I think what's going on with him is he's getting tricked on power and then hit with speed, and he's not
Yeah,
adjusting quick enough. He's trying to. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to jump set to try to attack these guys, but as you can see on this drive right here, he
yeah,
is in prime position, but his hips are parallel to the hash marks, and then if you're in this position, you have to kind of ride your guy and push him out of the way
right,
of getting to your quarterback. But when you're in a situation where like you're parallel to the hash marks, they can beat you to the outside. So he's gotten beaten like from speed rushes because of the fact that he's having a kind of having issues with power. So they're attacking him with speed. So they're trying to get him to attack them off the line of
right,
scrimmage,
right,
and that way he can like kind of be that shock absorber, like I'm coming to you first to subdue your power, but instead they're hitting him with speed after that, and then he's just not able to adjust. Brett Coleman had that video about Lane Johnson, who has a similar build to like a Paris Johnson, in my
right,
opinion, and he, as you can see, Lane Johnson waits for his people to come to him, whereas Paris is trying to come out to attack them.
yeah, yeah. It's disappointing because up till the the break, the bye, the Cardinals' offensive line was playing great. That's why Kyle and I argued to keep Beecham in there, keep the continuity because why broke something if it ain't fixed? I mean, fix something if it ain't broken, you know. So, and they were really peaking before the break. Chemistry in an offensive line is so valuable and important. Plus, you know, I made the argument, and I stand by it. When you make a change like that, and your teammates know how well the guy you're replacing has played and how much he's put into it, there's a natural, you know, kind of emotional reaction you have to that, because you don't want to see a guy who's earned it so much be replaced. But at the same time, you understand that you know paying you know Jonah Williams $15 million a year to play that position, and now he's healthy again. But you know, I mean, sometimes you just have to do what's best for the team. And you know, the other thing that I was arguing this morning on Revenge of the Birds and yesterday on Twitter is I saw the best, fastest, most instinctive, intuitive defense before the break with Max and Star and Garrett and Buddha and Rabbit in our secondary. And we come back from the break and it's not the same. And, you know, I mean, you got older guys in there who, quite frankly, aren't playing as fast. I mean, Sean Murphy Bunting and Jalen Thompson not playing as fast or instinctive. And, you know, again, I mean, if you're playing so well before the break, you're not even giving up touchdowns before the break, why change anything? And I think that on both sides of the ball, the personnel decisions were skittish by Jonathan Gannon and the coordinators. So let's go to the next play. Oh,
All
boy.
right. So I mentioned it before. This is the very next play after the Kyler Murray interception. The Seahawks have it at the 19-yard line going.
I'm trying to let's go ahead to the beginning of it. I want to see if I can read this coverage really quick because when they showed the highlight of it. This was Jackson Smith in the slot attacking Garrett Williams. Okay,
Right.
so that's what's going on. So they have like a little bit of a cone coverage going on over here. You have your two, I think that's a linebacker lined up on it's Jackson Smith and Jigba. His job is just to wall
Right.
off and deliver him to well, I mean, he did an inside release. So no, that wasn't what's going on. What was going on was he was taking him man to man. He was taking the tight end that was shifting over. And
Right.
so obviously Jackson Smith and Jigba is attacking Garrett Williams was 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. And if their butts are to the sidelines, that means this is probably quarters right here because you have your two high safeties. It looks like open field, middle field open, and then you have your corners on the outside backpedaling, kind of in a bail technique with their butts to the sidelines. That's usually an indication of quarters. So he just attacked leverage over here.
So you can help, you know, over the middle in particular. Like, stop it now. Look at this. 3 guys not doing shit. Not covering this guy, not have defense man there. They can communicate here. The backside guy can come up for the underneath pass. This guy's, you know, beating the coverage because we got a guy standing in cement right there. It's just one of the worst coached zone defenses I have ever seen, and it's
Yeah,
happened all year long. And we decided to try to, you know, make it work once in the whole season in the fourth quarter against the Vikings, and it made us look foolish. And this is just after someone, you know. What can you say? I mean, this is just and look at this pass rush. I mean, this isn't like an all-world Seahawks offensive line gang. And you know, I mean, why is this guy? Who is that? Is that Collier just standing there doing nothing? At least the bottom guy, I think it's Lopez, got double teamed. You can't blame him necessarily. Yeah, very frustrating. Let's go on to the next.
I was gonna say,
Now we'll see the
correction,
next
that's too high
interception.
zone.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you want to say, Marcos?
It was a too high zone, not quarters.
Yeah. And interesting that you have Garrett Williams on the back end, which he's pretty good at, but gets beat on this play. And I'd like to see Rabbit in there because this is where he's better than anyone on the back end, anyone we have on the roster. But no, can't see Rabbit because can't sit, Thompson, I guess, which
All
I
right.
don't get.
Let's jump 2 plays forward here. So now it's 10-7. We're still in the first quarter. 2nd down and 9. Got a play action right here for pressure with 4. Man across here.
Yeah.
Roaming. I think that's a line.
His job is to try to shoot upfield to try to disrupt that. He kind of succeeds in a way, but not too much. He can't shed the block here, so shoots up, try to disrupt that. Of course, does it to a certain degree because you see the lead blocker having to like redirect, but it's
Right.
not enough because you have nobody on the outside. And who's that
Right.
person that's supposed to be on the outside? It's supposed to be Kaiser White.
Look at Buddha trying to track it. Nearly gets there from the opposite side of the field.
Yeah, I was going to ask Marcos that question. So on this play, from what you're looking at, so Buddha starts out right here.
Yeah.
And as soon as Charbonnet goes into motion here, Buddha starts sliding over this way. Is that a man situation there, or is that a running back is in motion, therefore we have to adjust the defense here? What is the goal line defense on that play for Buddha?
This is a technique called rock and roll. So you either do that with your safeties. It's just a technique saying like, are you gonna rock and roll your safeties? Or it can also be a situation where you do it with the linebackers, you do it with Kaiser White, but Kaiser White's not known for his athleticism as much as a person like Mac Wilson is. So you would have put somebody else on the edge over there that's a little bit faster if you're going to do that. So when you see the motion happen, he immediately signals to the guy who's on the very right side of the edge, like, the other side of the formation. And then Buddha's Baker's job is to basically like line up where that I is or where that D is. And once he fully commits to that jet sweep, that's his guy now. That's supposed to be Kaiser's guy at this moment. And you see Buddha Baker obviously staying where he's at in his area. But when they saw that, he got the ball, then he's on tracker mode, which is like, oh, he's gotten the ball. Now let's try to stop this guy. Of course, you have your two linebackers right here. They're supposed to do that. They're supposed to stifle this any way, shape, or form by filling in the gaps or by fitting what the run is there, but it's not enough.
Right. They're just running a stretch play. This is classic McVay with Cooper Kupp. So the Seahawks, Ryan Grubb did a good job of scouting the Cardinals because the Cardinals traditionally have had very much difficulties defending this play. Here's my peeve about it. If we go back to the original alignment, when you have two tight ends stacked to that left side, notice where they're leaving a gap, an easy down block gap. And on that left side at the top, yes, right in there. When Charbonnet came in motion, well, still, the only running back here, potential handoff initially is this other fullback, right? So you want to slide your defenders down to account for this. Now on this, the minute Charbonnet goes in motion, you can slide our defensive line to that side. Instead, no one moves, and like you said, Marcos, at least Baron Browning tries to set a hard edge, but can't get upfield. And now, I mean, this is, you've got a linebacker on a cornerback who takes him out easily. You have the fullback coming to take the other defensive back. And then you got a cut back lane that Buda Baker almost gets to from the backside, which none of our interior guys impact the play at all. And you should be able to string that right down the line and be in position.
While
Someone
at the
should.
same time, number 43 here is rendered essentially useless on the play because he's coming in off the edge here. So that's, now you're playing
Yeah.
11 on 10 at that point because
Yeah.
the linemen don't have to worry about blocking 43 right here.
Right. Okay, on to the next. Boy, did they make us pay for those interceptions. That's what a mark of a good team. Of course, we
Yep.
didn't get that in times recently.
14
Like
points right off the
Vikings.
bat there.
Yeah, like not capitalizing on that fumble we got from the Vikings was really hurt. All right.
All right. So the next play here, we're jumping forward to the second quarter now. It's 17-10. The Seahawks have the ball at midfield. 2nd and 5. They're going there's 4 lined up wide. I think this is a tight end right here, but four lined
Right.
up as receivers. Charbonnet in the backfield. Cardinals have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Everybody down here on this play. So we can see all 11 Cardinals defenders in the picture right now. Let's see what the Seahawks decide to run on.
And learn nothing, not only from the mistakes he made in the week before in the fourth quarter, but I mean, in the interim, if anyone was watching the Lions this week, and the emphasis they put on going for it for first downs, and putting a positive step forward and trying to win the game, would have been impressed by that. Instead, Chad Ryland, who had to double as a punter, I thought did admirably. Unfortunately, since the break, he's missed 3 field goals, 1 in each game, and it's been a bit costly. And I don't know what to make of why that's happening either, except maybe the added pressure of being in games where you're trying so hard to try to win because you're in the hunt. But it's just Chad Ryland had been doing so well, but it's been tough. Balking it off the upright at that situation. But to me, it was it's counterintuitive because if you're down 9 points and you're driving the ball, you want it to be paramount to get the touchdown first, not the field goal. Particularly when the clock's running down and you're like 5 minutes. Don't know how much time you're going to have left. And as it turns out, the Seahawks started just converting first downs and running out the clock anyway. But it might have been a whole different story if you punch it in for a touchdown. Now you get within 2. Now they're nervous. You kick off to them and get them started back in their territory. It could be a whole different ball of wax, but unfortunately it didn't happen that way. But I think the decision to kick the field goal there was passive and ill-advised, unfortunately. Next one.
Only got.
Did you have that? Do you have that photo of the Seahawks fans?
Yeah, I can grab that.
This is absolutely galling. Let's just throw it up there.
Oh. Throw that. Right.
This is our stadium.
There.
This is our stadium with our cheerleaders down below. And on Charbonnet's touchdown, look at that.
It's the culture. At some point, I'm not sure what's going on with this organization, but I don't think it's ever been this consistently bad where like our own stadium is getting filled by opposite fans and people being disgusted by people selling their tickets. Well, with the economy the way it is and the way it's going, and whatnot. Like, can you blame them for doing that? Why do they want to show up to support a team that they or support a organization that they know is being controlled by an owner who's very controlling and to this day will not allow this franchise to actually like get going and whatnot because he tries to stifle every situation that you can think about when it comes to like either signing players, either extending players, making the right signs, letting go of players that he needs to let go of to let other players come in and whatnot. Like I 100% think that like the decision for one, the decision to have Jalen Thompson over DTD, that's just got to be like it has to be with like, hey, he has a bigger contract and
Right.
he's more proven. So like I want to get play out of the contract that I'm paying. Jonah Williams doing the same thing. Jonah Williams coming in, and I was never excited about Jonah Williams from the get go, and even thought to myself, why are people complaining about Beecham? Beecham's fine. Beecham can
Right.
hold it down. And
Right.
look what's going on right now. The issue with Jonah Williams coming back against the Seahawks was that they allowed 5 sacks and a ton of pressures and that's another situation like, hey, let's play Jonah Williams because he has a bigger contract over Beach. Let's just
Right.
keep Beach on the in the like let's just keep him as the backup and whatnot or as a swing tackle. And hey, let's go ahead and get the players that we think are gonna sell tickets. Let's get the fans excited. Hey, you know what's a good idea, Steve? Let's go trade for Hollywood Brown with the first round pick to try to
Right.
appease the fans and appease the quarterback. Oh, the
Right.
next year, hey, let's do the same thing. He wants a offensive tackle that he
Right.
really likes, and let's just go ahead and get his guy. Well, you know what? Monty's like, you know what? Fine, we'll move down, we'll get his guy, and
And
now
then have
there's
to move
people
back up.
criticizing. Yeah, they move back up and they're criticizing what his play is going, what his play is doing. And you think about like if you're the first tackle taken in the draft, you're supposed to be a stalwart from the very beginning. And as he's been improving, with his pass protection and whatnot, he's still not there in the elites. He's not considered one of the elite tackles. He's considered a good tackle, but not one of the elites in the league. So, like at some point, these fans aren't stupid. They know what's going on. When they get the call to renew their tickets, and they are aggressive, to be able to call, and they're given the option of like, hey, do you want to renew your season tickets with the Cardinals? A lot of people are just starting to think to themselves, you know what, I could just watch it. I don't have to drive to Glendale Stadium where there's a ton of traffic and a ton of visiting fans that are out there
Right.
doing their thing, tailgating as well, just like we are. And nothing's gonna change until the culture changes of this team.
Yeah. Here we were coming off 3 straight home wins. So you would think the fans would be, but maybe the last 2 weeks took the wind out of the fan sails and they were like, I don't know, I mean, this is for potentially a chance to win the division and more, Seahawks fans are inhabiting an entire end zone in Glendale. It's just galling. I mean, there's no better way to put it. I mean, I just don't get it. And here's the thing for me is like people on Revenge of the Birds, a lot of them are saying, well, at least we're in such good hands with Monty and Gannon. Um, Timeout. What? I mean, let's just remind people that to draft, to do the maneuverings that cost the Cardinals a lot of draft capital to do. Yes, it gained them some, but it also cost them a lot. The Cardinals said no thank you to Will Anderson Jr. And they still don't look at our pass rush yesterday. Who's doing anything on the edge? Zaven Collins got hurt, but he also was a no-show until he did. I mean, so the plan was we'll make Zaven over there because he's the same size, same height and weight as Will Anderson, and we'll turn him into a Will Anderson. Hasn't happened. Bad decision. Okay. Then you got a second round pick. They could have had Brian Branch, who's like a total steal of that draft. And those of us on the board I had like, if we can get Branch, get him because this guy's special, you know? So think of how our defense would be a little different if it had Will Anderson Jr. and Brian Branch on it for starters. Now we come to this year, and Kyle and I have been talking about this. I mean, the perfect guy if you're going to get a receiver for our offense and keep it within the mode of the strength of the offense was Brock Bowers. Hands down. You cannot watch Marvin Harrison's college tapes and side by side with Brock Bowers and think to yourself, wow, Marvin Harrison is a better fit for our offense. You just can't simply do that at all. Or Joe Alt. You know, you had Joe Alt, a stud tackle who's been doing great for the Chargers. So, I mean, it's like these picks, they're they're bypassing better players. And that's going to, you know, now, I like Paris Johnson Jr. just fine. I'm surprised that he's, you know, holding as much as he is and looks out of sorts down the stretch here, doing the reverse of what he did last year. He finally was picking it up down the stretch. But then again, I'm a Marcos. They draft Paris Johnson and play him at right tackle. I mean, it's galling. I mean, so you don't even play him in his natural position. You have to make him wait a year. Maybe if he's played left tackle for 2 years now, he doesn't make those holding calls yesterday. So, you know, I and look at Monty's free agent signings. I mean, you know, it's a study in futility, really. I mean, except for Froholt, and for a while there, Evan Brown was looking pretty good, but he's fading. But I mean, the two tackles inside, nada. They checked out early with injuries, looked out of shape from the beginning. Murphy Bunting has been a liability. Sorry, but he's been a liability. Our younger players are better. I mean, you know, then Mac Wilson, you know, it's very erratic. Good blitzer, but where's he making plays up the middle, tackling? Couldn't find him yesterday, except on one play. I mean, when you have another undersized inside linebacker in Kaiser White, another free agent signee, who looks at times overmatched at the position, and also has been a liability in coverage this year, just awful. You know, the middle of your defense has been what we saw yesterday. You know, Charbonnet has a career day, 134 yards. You know, everyone was like breathing a sigh of relief that Kenneth Walker wasn't going to play in the game. They didn't need Kenneth Walker. And it was just, you know, nobody up front making plays, nobody in the middle making plays, except for Budda Baker. And would you show the graphic of the highest graded players, Kyle, in this game for the original cursive grades that PFF gave? Pretty cool. I mean, this will make you proud when you look at it, because it's sure we got one guy who, regardless of, there you go. There's our guy. And it's mystifying to me that why this wasn't Budda's team from the minute these coaches arrived, with defensive coaches who have suddenly warmed up to him because he's balling his ever-living tail off. But they put the leadership of this team in the wrong hands from day one. And you know, I don't know what's going to happen now. They got the extension with James Conner. I mean, some are arguing that Budda's going to want out because he's probably not confident in the direction of the franchise. But I don't know how you can let this guy. I mean, without him yesterday, what are we looking at? I mean, he was all over the field, plus playing hurt. The dude plays hurt. I mean, he came up, hurt something, going down, trying to make a stunning come from behind tackle, and then next play comes in and makes the tackle. It's just unbelievable how good he is. Marcos, what do you want to see from happen with Buda Baker?
I want to keep him. But just like you mentioned, team might not want to stay because of the direction, especially since like now that you have like a team, you have your quarterback that's healthy, and you have this team that should be a complete type of team that you've seen win, and they're faltering late in December, and the leader of that that offensive side of the team, which is Kyler Murray, and I'd have to give some kudos to some people that are just hardcore Kyler stands to finally say, and I've been really, really like a critical of one person in the one individual in particular, but when you hang your head in the sideline and you're upset and the people around you are there, this is how it always plays out. No matter what you think about the quarterback position, you have to be a leader. It's hard to say that and be like, oh well, you know what? Like I don't care if you're taking number one overall, I don't care how old you are. I don't care what you are. Like you're getting paid a lot of money to be the quarterback. You're getting taken number one overall for a reason. We're not supposed to be shooing him or telling him like it's okay, you can develop at your pace. No, you develop at the number one overall pace, or we have to
Right,
figure out somebody else in that position because if you can make the great plays, you also need to make sure that you can stay consistent on making those great plays. And if you make bad plays, you need to tell your get your offense together and get them rallied up and tell them, hey, let's just keep going with this. Because if you're in a position where you're defeated and you're not upset, and enough with this like putting your hands to the side and doing this all the
right,
time, because that sends a message of saying like what happened. You know
right,
what happened. You made a bad read. So going like this instead of going
right,
like this, your teams are like
right,
your team's looking at you like, wait, whose fault is it? Like if he
right,
throws an interception and he does this, and
right,
it's like almost signifying to the people like the team around him, and even to like the people who are watching the game, like oh he must have ran the wrong route or he must have not hit. They must have been some miscommunication and whatnot. And he's essentially like saying like, well, if he would have ran the correct route, I would have hit him for
right,
that, but he didn't. And
right.
so it's okay if you have a miscommunication. It's okay, but
Yeah,
we saw this from Carson Palmer all the time, and his team, like they fought for him, even though
yeah,
people would say they didn't, because he blamed himself most of the time. He always told himself, "That's on me, man. That's my bad," and everything. He was doing that, even if it's not, even if it wasn't his fault. He was doing that
right,
so he can tell his guy, like, "Hey, man, don't worry about it. Like, we'll get up and like I'll carry us and whatnot." But when you have somebody that's like essentially just like going like this, like is like what happened, or just kind of like flailing around, going to the bench, just keeping his head down.
right.
And as much as he does, the team's like looking for other people to lead them and stuff. And it's disgusting how much blame Drew Petzing's getting. For one, to be able to even know if Drew Petzing is the one who's at fault, you're supposed to look at advanced analytics and see what he's running, what he's doing,
Right.
what could be the tell in his offense and whatnot. And you're also supposed to look at the all 22 because you can't figure out what routes or wide receivers running. I don't care what people say. If he's not calling deep plays, how do you know that if you're watching the
Right.
broadcast view? So it's
Right.
it's about time to start just like blaming the constant, because what's gonna happen is Drew's gonna get fired. You're gonna bring another offensive coordinator, and then what happens if we get the same results? Are we gonna fire him too?
Well, we've now seen a pattern from Kyler that's very apparent is that on pressure games, he struggles and in frantic, kind of skitterish ways that make you feel uneasy. Now, that rubs off on an entire ball club. When you see your quarterback panicking, it's not a good sign for, the rest of the team. And sometimes the rest of the team's just going to fall like a house of cards, like they've done before, and to a degree yesterday. Again, they just kind of this was like I think like the eighth or ninth time this year the Cardinals defense gave up three scores in succession, and you know Typically, it was touchdown, field goal, but sometimes it's been touchdown. It's not good. I mean, you don't get sustained play out of the defense. Of course, Kyler put him at that disadvantage in both cases. They were unforced errors. It's just, but here's my question. It's clear to me, correct me if I'm wrong, Marcos, and I'll ask Kyle to check in on this too, but correct me if I'm wrong. If you don't go for it with Kyler Murray and your offense on 4th and 3 on 2 games in a row, in clearly big time games that matter so much this time of year, what does that suggest about their confidence in the quarterback and in the offense? Marcos?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were asking Kyle. So to me, it's just like if they knew they had somebody that could execute and they can go for it, they had the confidence, they would go for it. It's just that simple. There's also those third and longs you could ask that question about. Like I heard
Yeah,
like the conversation about like, well, you saw Seattle Seahawks throw it deep on third and longs, and we're doing these H back dives and like these
right.
draw plays and stuff. And I'm like, maybe that should tell you a little bit of something about that because they do draw some deep passes on occasion. But if you see them on 3rd and 20 and they're just trying to get like a screen to somebody to get the yard, that's because they know they can't get it. That's because they know the defense is covering the line of scrimmage and they don't have confidence that their quarterback can thread the needle because it's not as easy. I don't know why people think it's like people don't use common sense. It's not easy to drop a play on a 3rd and 20 when you know the defense is going to make you force everything underneath. And if you
Right.
do that, by the way, you have to have a quarterback that you have confidence in where you're like, okay, we'll call smash concept on this one. I think he'll be able to hit the whole shot. Um, Even if they have the coverage on the back end and whatnot. If they're not doing that and Kyler Murray's dumping the ball off, that's on him. And one more thing, when
Yeah.
you see him dumping the ball down low, it doesn't mean that there's no deeper routes being drawn up. Doesn't mean there isn't
That's
any
right.
reads down low. That's just Kyler Murray dumping it off because he doesn't like what he sees downfield.
Right. Or he doesn't not patient enough to let the play develop downfield. He's just going to play hot potato and
Also,
get it
yeah.
off. I mean, you know, um, I watched the last 3 games of Sam Darnold's, and it raised the question to me. If you're not going to be confident in Kyler now after this amount of time with him, for all the reasons, and it feels like they're treating Kyler like he's a rookie. I mean, it's kind of a conservative way you play with a rookie, right? And they're certainly treating Marvin Harrison Jr. like a rookie. Now, to my mind, if you're Drew Petzing and you're trying to run smash mouth, and you're big on physical style play football, don't you need a quarterback who can command the pocket like a Sam Darnold and take hits every now and then and still stand in there and deliver? I mean, Sam Darnold, last 2 games, has gotten sacked 9 times, and he's thrown 7 touchdown passes. The dude is so resilient. I mean, the Cardinals put a licking on him in that first half. Look at him in the second half. Came back with a vengeance. That's the kind of stuff Carson Palmer used to do. He'd get pissed off. He wouldn't give into it. He'd get pissed off. And then, with Marvin Harrison Jr., we don't need a finesse receiver in this offense. We need dogs who can track the ball over the middle and get rack yards. I mean, because if you're going to run a heavy run game, where's the opening going to be? It's going to be behind the linebackers. So you need dogs who can win in those areas. And, I mean, Marvin Harrison, that's not his game. So this is kind of playing out the way I predicted it when they drafted him. I said it's going to be more of a distraction because it's going to be hard for him to get open in the NFL initially for the same reasons I saw on tape. So and also it's taking away from what you do best. We haven't done what we do best as well as they were doing it down the stretch last year. In fact, it's gotten away from that a little bit. So, and whole day yesterday, Trey McBride, how many targets did he get in the first half coming off a 12, a record performance? Zero? I mean, invisible in the first half, you don't make a part of the game. When they got in the red zone, what routes was McBride running? 4-yard crossers. You know, he had a good second half. They started throwing it to him, but in the first half, nothing. I mean, it just drives you nuts. He should be the focal point of the passing game. And, I mean, unfortunately, yesterday he was not. I didn't see 14 targets to him at all. I don't know what that stat is, but anyway, Kyle. So, I mean, if this is the question to you, Kyle, is if they're not showing much confidence in Kyler, not only in short down situations, but with game on the line, but also in throwing the ball anywhere over 70 yards, which seems to be an issue in this offense. Do you think, I'll put the choice to you, would it be better to get rid of Petzing and put in a new, more finesse-oriented offense, maybe more wide open passing-wise? Or would it be wise to stay with Petzing and find a quarterback who's a better fit, who's a sturdy, player in the pocket where you can play action consistently and throw the ball over the middle consistently? Given those choices, what would you do? What do you think the Cardinals should do?
Well, I mean, as it stands right now, I wouldn't pivot from either right now because this is what the growing pains they were going through when they brought in Petzing to work with Kyler in the first place was that this was going to be a
Yep.
new offense that Kyler was going to run. This was the team that they wanted to put forward. This was the personnel grouping that they wanted to put forward. And I said around draft time, the best coordinators in the league, they adapt to the personnel that they have on the team. They adapt to what they're doing based on personnel. And we can go back and rehash the arguments of Malik Neighbors or Brock Bowers or Marvin Harrison Jr. over and over, but I don't know how much influence the coaching staff or the offensive coaches had in the personnel package, but you go back and you adapt based on the personnel that you have. And obviously we're now 19 games into this Kyler Murray, Drew Petzing experiment. That's about a
Right.
representative sample size of what the offense is going to be. And they've had their highs, they've
Mm-hmm.
had their lows, but ultimately they've been a top 10 offense. I think there's obviously room for improvement, which you just outlined, but I I don't think they're going to be able to find better than Drew Petzing on the open market this year, given the uncertainty around both the quarterback position and just the lack of really strong offensive coordinators. Usually, when you have a good one, they don't get let go all that often. I mean, you saw the Bears tried it
Right.
with Shane Waldron, the Raiders tried it with Luke Getsy. Obviously, those teams are not the caliber of offense that the Cardinals are. So maybe you think that you might be able to attract another guy, but I we saw it when the coaching hiring was going on with Gannon. I mean, Dan Quinn said no, Brian Flores said no to head coaching interviews. It's not like the Cardinals are in high demand in terms of having coordinators come in the door at this point. So if push came to shove, I guess the answer I would give you is reevaluate the quarterback side of things, but I think that the Cardinals at this stage best bet is to keep trying to make this thing work between Kyler and Drew Petzing because they've had a top 10 offense this season. It just is not the offense. They're not adapting to personnel as well in terms of Marvin Harrison Jr. does look lost at times playing in the offense, and Greg Dortch has completely disappeared this season, and they have essentially no slot receiver help. So maybe they integrate Marvin Harrison Jr. into slot packages at times or motion offenses. Maybe they bring Michael Wilson into some situations like that. But
Right.
I don't think it behooves the Cardinals to just move on from either of them just to say you moved on from them. In terms of the
Right.
fourth down things, my offensive philosophy is if it's unless you're inside like your own 25-yard line, if it's fourth and less than three, I think you should go for it every time. I mean,
Right.
the analytic play says you're either going to
Right.
get the ball back relatively quickly after going for it, or
Right.
you're going to pick it up and have a whole nother time to eat clock. So there's no way I can defend not going for it on the fourth and threes and the fourth and twos because I think
Right.
you should pretty much, no matter game circumstance, should go for it pretty much every time on fourth and two or fourth and three.
Right. Here's one statement, and then I'm going to kick it to Marcos for his final thoughts. Is we've 6 years with Kyler, he's never had a productive season with a slot wide receiver. I mean, with Kristen Kirk, Kirk didn't play a traditional slot because he didn't want to catch balls over the middle here, and didn't. He ran corners and cross corners, and you know, uh, bubble screens and out passes, and posts, and like that great 9 route he ran go route versus the Cowboys. But he was not a traditional slot. Now there's a reason for that, right? What's the reason? Why hasn't Kyler ever connected with a slot? And people keep saying, "Oh, well, Andy Isabella sucked" or whatever. But Andy Isabella is one of many players who've come in. Rondale Moore never clicked. Why is that? You draft these slot guys and they're not clicking. Why is it, Marcos?
Well, they were drafting him for their speed, so they would thought they were gonna do this whole like uh take the top off the defense and hitting them over the top. So they weren't trying to make him into slots. They drafted him as like somewhat prototypical slot receivers that are like short and whatnot. And we're gonna make him into go route runners, which I knew was never gonna be the case. I knew that was never gonna work because Kyler Murray's game isn't dictated on, hey, can you outrun your competition? Yeah, he's gone into his guy sometimes, but most of the time, as you can see, he throws it up there. He wants to throw that 50-50 ball. So that's why I always told myself, like, this isn't going to work. The only way it works is if you have a guy who's a big physical, like, type of player that could come down with it because it's all about, like, hey, correcting him on those throws.
Right.
Also, he doesn't attack the middle of the field as efficiently, literally
Right.
as efficiently as he should. So if you're getting slot guys, you're expecting for them to go over the middle and
Right.
whatnot. And if your quarterback has a hard time being able to target those over the middle throws, and that's why he's not going to have that much success with those. Although I will say that Kyler Murray has gotten better, at least in this offense, with hitting that over the middle, those over the middle shots.
Yeah. And I think the vision, impaired vision, has something to do with it. Getting not floating as well as he could, and whatnot. And you know, I think basically that's a part of Kyler's game I'm not sure that we'll ever get to a proficient level. And then but what's very clear is, back in the day when Kyler, early on in year 2 and 3 with Cliff, was one of the best downfield thrower quarterbacks in the league, that has all disappeared. Only made one nice play, really good throw on the corner. It wasn't a bomb per se, but it was really well feathered in there nicely. But we don't take shots downfield anymore. We play in a 12 by 10 rectangle, and it was trending that way with Kyler in the tail end of Cliff. Kyler was just dumping off third, and to the point where it got to be called third and give up offense. Everything was thrown underneath the sticks or way out of bounds, and So these are thoughts that it struck me profoundly yesterday. I was thinking that, boy, I wonder if we got Petzing a rugged, made to order pocket passer who can run play action like a Goff, like a like Sam Darnold, like Joe Burrow, someone like that who can take a licking but deliver and can wait until plays get open and can hit a slot. And then, and get him some dogs to throw to. How different this offense could be based on, what it does well to begin with. So, Marcos, final thought.
I just we're going into two easy games, so or what you would think would be easy games. They're not for sure anymore. Bryce Young's playing way better, and Drake May is looking pretty well out there. So it's going to be telling what happens if we lose these next two games, or we lose one of these two games, and that's gonna be it for us. So I mean, just like I kept saying, guys, like being critical doesn't mean you hate the guy. It just means that you're trying to make him better, or you're trying to point out things to make him better. And for whatever is being said out there and whatnot, everybody has the ability to do their own research and be able to find out for themselves, even from somebody like me, for instance. Don't just take my word. And that's what I would just say for all the people out there who want to, you know, get down to the nitty gritty of things. You got the power in your hands as well.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Kyle,
See you guys.
parting shots from you, Kyle.
Looking up our playoff odds right now, we're looking at 11% chance for the Cardinals, which is disappointing given that with the win yesterday, the Seahawks are now sitting at a 58% chance of making it to the playoffs, and you could have just flipped that around pretty much with
Yeah.
a win yesterday. So we said last week at the same time, this was the game. This was the game that mattered the most, and now the Cardinals are chasing it from behind. Just as a reference for people, 58% for the Seahawks, 42% for the Rams, 11% for the Cardinals, and 5% for the 49ers at this point. So we'll see, but the playoff odds shifted from about a 50-50 shot at the division to now looking at about 11% chance. So this one's disappointing, but like Marco said, you have two games against teams that have a combined 6 wins this year, so you hope for the best going into those two games, but if you drop one of them, I mean, you're slim pickings the rest of the way, because then you can only get to 9 wins, and honestly, 10 wins is probably what it's going to take to make the playoffs in this here NFC this year. It's probably going to take 10 wins, which for the Cardinals means 4-0 the rest of the way.
Correct. And I think it's symbolic that it's 11%. Because the Cardinals need a Hail Larry. And, hey, we've seen it before. So don't give up. We're going to keep trying and, hopefully, and try to get the mojo they had back before the bye. Whatever the Cardinals did over the bye week, they got to make sure they don't do again because, obviously they did not stay locked in nearly enough. So, but yeah, we got a home game again against the Patriots. I don't think there are a lot of Boston fans around the world, so we're going to see some Patriots fans there. But I don't think, hordes of Patriots fans are going to inhabit Gillette. I mean, not Gillette, State Farm Stadium this week. It would be amazing if they did. But yeah, see how they can bounce back and kind of take back control of their own quality of play. So with that in mind, and one game at a time, thanks so much to our special guest and analyst, Marcos Labrada. It's always a joy to have him here. To Kyle Little Rock Ledbetter for all the great work he does. This, still sporting his University of Arizona sweatshirt, which was our lucky charm during the four-game win streak. Now we need another 4-game win streak So I hope you keep it on, please. So, yep. And boy, how about if the Cardinals got a little ASU magic going? I mean, ASU plays like they're playing with house money, you know? I mean, the surprise plays, and Scattaboo, I mean, he is like unbelievable. I mean, it's too bad it's not rubbing off on the Cardinals, and maybe they ought to, let it, rub
Yeah.
off a little bit on them, and especially in the way they approach these games and how they, you know, kind of they should shun the ultra conservative. Yeah, go
Shout
ahead.
out to Cam Scattaboo. He grew up about five exits up the freeway from where I live up here in Sacramento.
Woo!
Former Sac State guy. So shout out Cam Scattaboo, doing great things
God,
at
is
ASU.
he fun to watch? So, yeah, it was a great weekend for Arizona football, except on Sunday. And but we'll see how it goes this week. See where we are in a week's time. And until then, may the red rain shower down on you into a red, red sea, the red, red sea. Hopefully, it's going to be red, like Cardinal red, and the Cardinals in Cardinal uniforms red on this Sunday. Red rain.